Every pain you have endured, every setback you have faced, and every disappointment you have carried, it was all part of a greater preparation. Nothing in your life has been wasted. Not a single tear, not a single lonely night, not a single betrayal. The moments that made you question if God had forgotten you were the very moments He was using to shape you, to strengthen you, to prepare you for what's coming next. You see, God never allows suffering without a purpose. The enemy wants you to believe that the years you lost were just wasted time, that you missed your chance, that it's too late to recover what slipped through your fingers. But that is a lie, because in God's hands, nothing is ever truly lost. What looks like delay is actually divine preparation. What looks like failure is often a hidden lesson shaping you for a greater victory. Think about Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, thrown into prison for a crime he didn't commit. Year after year, it must have seemed like his life was slipping away. Every moment in that prison cell could have felt like wasted time, but in reality, God was preparing him. Every hardship, every betrayal, every moment of suffering was positioning him for the throne. And when the time was right, when God's plan had fully unfolded, Joseph didn't just recover what he lost, he was elevated far beyond what he ever imagined. The same is true for you. The enemy tried to steal your joy, your peace, your purpose. He tried to convince you that the years of struggle were for nothing. But the truth is, God has been working behind the scenes, orchestrating every detail, refining you in the fire, so that when your season of restoration comes, you'll be ready to walk into it. You may have faced rejection. You may have poured your time, your energy, your heart into something or someone only to watch it slip through your hands. You may have felt overlooked, like no one saw your effort, like no one appreciated the sacrifices you made. But let me tell you something, God saw it all. He saw every silent tear. He saw every moment you wanted to give up but chose to keep going, and He is a God who restores. What you thought was a season of loss was actually a season of preparation. God was teaching you resilience. He was teaching you faith. He was teaching you how to trust Him when nothing made sense. Because when restoration comes, you won't just be stepping back into what you lost, you will be stepping into something greater. You will carry wisdom, strength, and a testimony that will inspire others. The very pain that made you question everything will one day be the proof that God was with you all along. The very struggles that made you wonder if you would ever recover will become the foundation of your greatest blessings. Because when God restores, He doesn't just give back what was lost, He multiplies it. He gives back in abundance. Think about Job. He lost everything, his health, his wealth, even his children. But God wasn't done with him. When the season of restoration came, Job received double for everything he lost. Not just a little, not just enough to get by, but double. That's the kind of restoration God has planned for you. So do not dwell on the past. Do not sit in regret, wondering what could have been. Your wasted years are not wasted at all. They were the foundation of something greater. They were the training ground for your next season. They were the fire that refines you into the person who is now ready to receive what God is about to release into your life. Get ready. Restoration is coming. And when it comes, you will look back on everything you thought was lost and realize it was all part of the plan. You may have been waiting for years, wondering when things will change, questioning why the breakthrough hasn't come yet. You've prayed, you've believed, you've held on, but it seems like nothing is happening. The enemy whispers that it's too late, that you've missed your moment, that the years you've lost can never be recovered. But let me tell you something, delay is not denial. Just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it won't happen. God's timing is perfect, and when He moves suddenly. Sometimes we think God has forgotten about us because we don't see progress. We look around and see others advancing, others being blessed, others stepping into their purpose, and we wonder, what about me? Did I do something wrong? Did I miss my chance? But what you don't realize is that God isn't ignoring you. He's preparing you. He's positioning things in your favor. He's aligning the right people, the right opportunities, the right circumstances. If He gave it to you too soon, you wouldn't be ready. If he opened the door before the right time, you might not be able to handle the blessing. Think about David. He was anointed as king when he was just a shepherd boy, but he didn't step into that role immediately. He had to go through years of waiting, years of battles, years of being pursued by Saul, wondering when the promise would come to pass. If David had been crowned too soon, he wouldn't have been the king he was meant to be. The process shaped him, refined him, made him into a leader who could handle the weight of his destiny. The delay wasn't a denial, it was preparation. And the same is true for you. The enemy wants you to believe that your time is over, that too much has been lost, that it's too late to recover what's gone. But when God restores, He doesn't just give you back what you lost, He multiplies it. He makes up for every year, every moment, every tear. What the enemy stole, God gives back with interest. The book of Joel says that God will restore the years that the locusts have eaten. Think about that for a moment. It doesn't just say He will give you something new. It says He will restore the very years you thought were wasted. The time you thought was lost, the opportunities you thought were gone forever, the moments you wished you could redo, God is able to take them and bring something good out of them. He is able to accelerate your destiny so that what should have taken years to accomplish can happen in an instant. When restoration comes, it won't be gradual. It won't be something you have to struggle for. It will come suddenly. One moment, Joseph was a prisoner. The next moment, he was standing before Pharaoh, being promoted to second in command over all of Egypt. One moment, Job had lost everything. The next, God restored double. One moment, Peter had been fishing all night without catching anything. The next, Jesus told him to cast his net one more time, and he pulled in so many fish that his nets began to break. That's how quickly God can move. That's how suddenly restoration can come. You may have been waiting for years, but it only takes one moment for God to shift everything. The right door, the right opportunity, the right divine connection. It can happen in an instant. But here's the key. You have to stay ready. You have to keep believing, keep trusting, keep expecting. The enemy wants to wear you down so that when your moment of restoration comes, you're too tired, too discouraged, too doubtful to step into it. But don't let that happen. Stand firm, keep your faith strong, because when God moves, you won't have time to prepare. You'll have to be ready. What's coming is greater than what was lost. The years you thought were wasted will be restored in ways you never imagined. God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't overlooked you. He's just been setting the stage for something bigger, something better, something that will make every moment of waiting worth it. And when it happens, you will see that the delay was never a denial. It was always a setup for something greater. The biggest lie the enemy wants you to believe is that your past mistakes have disqualified you, that because of the choices you made, because of the failures you've experienced, because of the time you wasted, you can never step into the future God has for you. He wants you trapped in regret, looking back on the opportunities you missed, the doors that closed, the relationships that fell apart, convincing yourself that it's too late to turn things around. But let me tell you something. God does not consult your past when He designs your future. He is not looking at your mistakes and saying, I can't use them anymore. He is not keeping a record of your failures and saying they have gone too far. No, He is a God of redemption. He is a God of mercy. And when He restores, He does not do it halfway. He does not just give you a second chance. He gives you a completely new beginning. Look at the story of Peter. He walked with Jesus. He saw miracles firsthand, and yet when the pressure came, he denied the very one he had sworn to follow. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. Imagine the weight of that regret. Imagine the shame, the disappointment, the feeling that he had ruined everything. But Jesus didn't look at Peter and say, you failed and now I can't use you. Instead, after the resurrection, He sought Peter out. He restored him. And not only that, but Peter was the one God chose to stand up on the day of Pentecost and preach the message that would bring thousands into the kingdom. That's the kind of restoration God does. He takes the very area where you thought you had disqualified yourself, and uses it as the platform for your greatest testimony. The very thing the enemy used to shame you, to break you, to convince you that you had no future, God will turn it around and use it as a testimony of His power and grace. Think about the prodigal son. He wasted everything. He made every wrong choice. He walked away from the very blessing that had been given to him. But when he finally came to his senses, when he finally decided to return home, the father didn't meet him with anger. He didn't make him earn back his place. No, the father ran to him. He embraced him. He restored him fully, giving him a robe, a ring, and a celebration. That's what God does. He doesn't hold your past over your head. He welcomes you back with open arms. So stop letting guilt and shame hold you hostage. Stop believing the lie that you've gone too far, that you've wasted too much time, that you can never recover what was lost. That's not how God works. He specializes in restoring broken things. He turns ashes into beauty. He takes what was meant for harm and uses it for good. He does not just erase your past, He redeems it. You may look back and see years that were wasted. You may see decisions you regret, time that slipped through your fingers. But what if I told you that nothing was truly wasted? What if I told you that even the mistakes, even the failures, even the lost years can be used for something greater? Because God does not just restore time, He redeems it. He takes what was broken and makes it even better than before. You see, the enemy wants you to stay stuck in the past because he knows that if you ever truly grasp the power of God's restoration, you will step into a future greater than anything you imagine. He knows that if you ever truly believe that God can still use you, that He can still bless you, that He can still restore everything you lost, then nothing will be able to stop you. So let this be the moment you stop looking back with regret and start looking forward with expectation. Let this be the moment you stop believing the lies and start believing the truth, that your past does not define you, that your mistakes do not disqualify you, and that your best days are still ahead. Because when God restores, He doesn't just give you what you lost, He gives you more. He makes it better. He turns your story into a testimony, and He proves once and for all that nothing, absolutely nothing, is beyond His redemption. Restoration always begins with expectation. If you don't expect anything, you won't receive anything. If you don't believe that God can restore what was lost, you'll live as if restoration is impossible. The enemy works hard to keep you discouraged, to make you think that your situation is beyond repair, that too much time has passed, that nothing can change. But God is asking you today, can you believe again? Can you expect something greater? Can you trust that I am still the God who restores? Expectation is the breeding ground for miracles. Throughout the Bible, every time Jesus performed a miracle, it was in response to faith. The woman with the issue of blood expected healing before she ever touched His garment. The blind man, Bartimaeus, expected a miracle before Jesus even called his name. The centurion expected Jesus to heal his servant with just a word. Every one of them had a choice. They could have accepted their situation, believed it was too late, or given in to doubt, but instead they chose to expect. They chose to believe. And because they expected, they received. That's how restoration works. God is looking for those who will dare to believe again. Those who will say, I know what it looks like, but I trust what God said. Those who will rise up in faith and say, the years may have been lost, but I serve a God who can redeem time. Those who refuse to settle for what the enemy stole and instead declare everything the enemy took, God is about to restore. The problem is, so many people lose their expectation because they've been disappointed before. Maybe you prayed for something and it didn't happen the way you thought it would. Maybe you believed for restoration, but things only seem to get worse. Maybe you waited for years and nothing changed. And now, you don't want to get your hopes up. You don't want to believe again, because what if it doesn't happen? What if you get let down again? But faith is not based on what we see. Faith is not based on what has or hasn't happened yet. Faith is based on who God is. And God is a restorer. He is a promise keeper. He is the one who makes all things new. And if He has said He will restore the years that were lost, then you have every reason to expect that restoration is coming. Even if you don't see it yet, even if it doesn't make sense, even if it seems impossible. Look at Abraham. God promised him a son, but years passed and nothing happened. In the natural, everything looked impossible. He and Sarah were well past the age of having children, but the Bible says that Abraham did not waver in unbelief. He continued to believe, even when it seemed foolish. He expected, even when there was no evidence. And because he believed, because he expected, he received. The same is true for you. Maybe it's been years since you had hope for the future. Maybe disappointment has made you stop expecting, but today God is calling you to believe again, to expect again. Because when you expect restoration, you position yourself to receive it. Expectation shifts your mindset. It changes how you pray. It changes how you speak. Instead of saying, I guess this is just the way it is, you start saying, I know God is working even if I don't see it yet. Instead of saying, it's too late for me, you start saying, God is the God of sudden breakthroughs and He can restore my lost years in an instant. Instead of letting fear and doubt take over, you let faith rise up. When you expect, you prepare. You start making room for the blessing. If you're expecting rain, you bring an umbrella. If you're expecting a visitor, you prepare your house. And if you're expecting God to restore your lost years, you start living like it's already on the way. You wake up with hope, you walk with confidence, you speak with authority, because you know that God is not a man that He should lie. What He has promised, He will fulfill, so don't let past disappointments steal your expectation. Don't let delays convince you that it's over. Don't let the enemy tell you that nothing will change. Instead, lift your eyes and believe again, expect again. Because when you expect restoration, you are preparing yourself to receive it, and when the time is right, when God's perfect plan unfolds, you will see that every moment of waiting was not in vain. The restoration He brings will be greater than anything you could have imagined. When God restores, He doesn't just give back what was lost, He brings more than you ever had before. He doesn't just return what was stolen, He multiplies it. That's the nature of God. He is not a God of just enough. He is a God of overflow, of abundance, of more than enough. What the enemy meant for harm, God turns around for good. And when He restores, He does it in a way that leaves no doubt that His hand was in it. Too often we limit our thinking to simply getting back what was taken from us. We think, if I could just get back to where I was before, I'd be happy. But God doesn't want to take you back. He wants to take you forward. He wants to bring you into something better, something greater than what you lost. You may have lost a job, a relationship, an opportunity. But when God restores, He doesn't just replace what was taken. He brings something far beyond what you expected. Look at Job. He lost everything, his wealth, his health, even his family. It looked like his life was over. But when the season of restoration came, God didn't just give Job back what he had lost. He gave him double, twice as much as he had before. That's how God works. He doesn't just restore to the original. He increases, He expands, He elevates. What the enemy stole was only a fraction of what God is about to release into your life. Think about Joseph. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison. For years, it seemed like everything he had worked for was wasted. But when God's restoration came, Joseph wasn't just freed from prison, he was elevated to second in command over all of Egypt. The very thing that was meant to destroy him became the stepping stone to his greatest blessing. That's the kind of restoration God has for you. You may have lost time, but God can restore it in such a way that what should have taken years to build will happen in a moment. You may have lost relationships, but God can bring people into your life who will love and support you in ways you never imagined. You may have lost finances, but God can open doors that lead to provision and increase beyond what you thought was possible. The problem is we often focus so much on what we lost that we fail to see what's coming. We hold on to the past, grieving over what's gone, instead of lifting our eyes to what God is about to do. But God is saying to you today, I have more for you. Stop looking back, stop dwelling on what was, and start expecting what's ahead. Isaiah 43:19 says, Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it? The restoration God has for you is not just a repeat of the past. It is something new, something fresh, something greater than what you lost. You may feel like too much time has passed, like you've fallen too far behind. But God is a master at accelerating time. What should have taken years can happen in a moment when He moves. What looked like a lifetime of loss can be restored in a way that makes you forget the pain of the past. When Joseph's restoration came, he named his son Manasseh, which means God has made me forget all my hardship. That is the level of restoration God is bringing into your life. The kind that makes you forget the years of struggle because the blessings before you are so much greater. But here's the key, you have to believe for it. You have to expect it. The enemy wants you to settle, to accept the loss, to believe that this is as good as it gets. But God is calling you higher. He's saying, don't settle for restoration that just brings you back to where you were. Expect restoration that takes you further than you've ever been. So get ready. The restoration God has for you is not just about recovering what was lost. It's about stepping into something far greater. The joy that's coming will be greater than the sorrow that was endured. The opportunities ahead will be greater than the ones that were missed. The blessings on the way will be so overwhelming that you'll look back and realize that nothing was truly lost. It was all a setup for something better. When God restores, He doesn't just bring things back. He makes all things new. When God restores, it is not just about giving you back what was lost. It is about preparing you for a future so great that it makes the past losses insignificant. He restores with purpose. He restores with a divine strategy. And most importantly, He restores in a way that reveals His glory. Because what He is about to do in your life is not just for you, it is a testimony for others to see His power at work. There are seasons in life where it feels like everything has been taken away. You've prayed, you've believed, you've done everything you know to do, but still it seems like loss keeps following you. You may have lost time, opportunities, relationships, or resources, and in those moments, the enemy tries to whisper that it's over, that things will never change, that you will never recover, but God says otherwise. When God restores, He does it in such a way that no one can deny it was Him. He makes sure that the restoration is undeniable, unexplainable, and so complete that people around you will have no choice but to acknowledge that it was His hand moving in your life. The story of your restoration will not be ordinary. It will not be something that can be credited to luck or coincidence. No, the way God restores will be so supernatural that people will look at you and say, only God could have done this. Look at the life of Naomi. She left Bethlehem with her husband and 2 sons, but over time she lost everything. Her husband died, her sons died, and she was left with nothing. She even changed her name to Mara, which means bitter, because she believed that life had dealt her too many blows. But what she didn't realize was that God was setting her up for a greater restoration. Through Ruth, God orchestrated a divine connection with Boaz, and Naomi's life was restored in a way she never expected. The same woman who thought her story was over became part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. Her restoration wasn't just about getting back what she lost. It was about positioning her in God's greater plan. That is how God works. He doesn't just restore to comfort you. He restores to reposition you for something greater. He restores to bring His divine plan into fulfillment. You may not understand why you went through the losses you did. You may be asking, why did I have to endure this? Why did I have to go through the pain? But what if I told you that everything you went through was a set? What if I told you that the enemy thought he was destroying you, but in reality he was only pushing you toward a greater purpose? Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery thinking they had ruined his destiny. But what they didn't realize was that they were actually pushing him into position. The betrayal, the false accusations, the years of struggle, none of it was wasted. Every single event was leading him to the place where he would fulfill his destiny. When the moment of restoration came, Joseph wasn't just given back what he lost, he was promoted to a level that exceeded anything he could have imagined. And not only was he restored, but he became a vessel of restoration for his entire family. That's what happens when God restores. It's not just about you, it's about those connected to you. Your restoration is going to impact your family, your community, your future generations. The enemy didn't just try to steal from you, he tried to block the destiny that was meant to flow through you, but he failed, because what God has planned for your life is unstoppable. Your restoration is not just about personal recovery, it is about divine influence. What God restores in your life will be a testimony that draws others closer to Him. The people who saw your struggle, the ones who doubted your comeback, the ones who thought it was over for you, they will be the same ones who witness the greatness of God's restoration in your life. So get ready. What God is about to do will be bigger than you expected, greater than you imagined, and more powerful than you dreamed. When He restores, He doesn't just put things back in place. He lifts you higher, strengthens you, and uses your story to bring glory to His name. And when it happens, you will look back and realize that nothing was lost. It was all preparation for what was coming. The years you thought were wasted were actually being aligned for the greatest restoration of your life.